And away we go.
And this is episode 20, part 2. Quick revisit on the No Kings protest. I know it was like 2-3 weeks ago, whatever. But the weird thing about it, or I thought it was weird, it happened to me this week, is these are some of the biggest, numbers-wise, protests that the U.S., or some of these happen outside of the United States, but the U.S. anyways, has had ever. Not only are they some of the biggest, but they are also some of the most peaceful protests. So that's a good thing, except that outside of the sphere of people who are kind of involved in them, people seem to, especially MAGA, seems to be oblivious to their existence or what they're about or what they mean. I had a family member say, so what's up with the riots? And I said, there were no riots. And then I repeated it. There were no riots. And he was like, what? And then when I tried to go on, they said, well, so these protests, so it's all about ICE? And I said, no, that's a small part of it, but no. And I tried to explain what's going on with ICE because they didn't understand. And then they said, so what's it about? And I didn't want to get into it. So I just said, it's against the entire administration, specifically non-democratic actions. I could have used terms like fascist or whatever, but I didn't want to get deep into the woods with people that I didn't want to have a political discussion about. But what really struck me was just, we have this huge protest that we think is very, very basic. You know, no kings. It says it right in the name, no kings. And these people aren't aware of what's going on and can't put 2 and 2 together to figure out what it's about. Is that a failure on our part, or is that something else going on? I guess is what I'm asking.
Right. Now I'm going to try to answer some of those questions in the way I understand it. And so look, we're living in 2 separate realities.
Yeah.
And like you're saying, how can they not know? It's because they're in these echo chambers. Now, a good portion of these people in these echo chambers are watching Fox News and AON and Newsmax, which are in all. Look, reality is, subjective in a lot of different ways. Everybody kind of sees things through their own lens, certainly. But there's an agreed upon reality that we can kind of come to.
You would think so.
Right, that we can say this is, what's going on. And there's a scientific method, involved with certain things, especially when it comes to math and physics and all this other stuff, that we can really kind of nail it down. And that's how we can get things like this phone that I'm speaking into now, like it's going to transmit to you while you're watching this. Now, people who think this way are generally, or have that ability, especially when it comes to social systems and other ways, and apply that same sort of logic, and then also understanding when they're witnessing something, what's happening, or observing and, the world around them. They're going to be more accurate in their descriptions of things. And then there's, people that are just outright lying. And then they're doing it for a reason, because their agenda. And obviously Fox News, Newsmax, all these other people that are owned by these, certain people, that's their agenda. That is their agenda, their corporatist, fascist agenda. And so these individuals that are watching this are in this bubble. They don't even understand what we're talking about. They can't understand it. They've been told that everything else, it's like being in a cult, right? So if you're in a cult, what's going to happen is they're going to say you can't associate with anyone else because they're evil and wicked. And anything that they tell you is a lie, because and if you leave the cult, you're going to die. It's all this fear mongering, right? And then like everything that they're saying is a lie, And, when you talk about Newsmax and Fox and all these things, it's this religious aspect of it that they bring in that makes it even double down on the insanity, because now this is like, you're tying this in now with divine order, with divine inspiration. Like, this is divine. So you try to question somebody about their religion or faith, you know how that's going to go. You can say it's just, as ridiculous and as insane as the Old Testament is in so many different ways. No matter how much you present that, it just sounds like the most insane, absurd, ridiculous, and in many ways the most atrocious morality, the most evil, wicked, psychotic behavior of this tyrannical God who demands this worship, or he's going to murder everybody. He loves you, but he puts sin in you, and you have to repent to him and obey him. and he's going to tell you, he knows your life and you can't change anything about it. Yeah, that sounds like, you know, the worst boyfriend you ever had, right? You know, like, so anyways, you know, this trauma bond, you add that aspect to these evil maniacal capitalists and corporatists who married this religion with this shit. Man, you got a recipe for disaster. So these people are impenetrable almost at this point. So they're living in this alternate reality, and it's impenetrable in so many different ways. So you can present them with the reality, but all they're going to say is, "Oh, you probably got that from CNN." It's like, yeah. so
what?
They've been taught to believe that CNN is some far, far left propaganda.
Ironically, they've been shifting right. It's disgusting.
Well, here's the thing. Look, there is no left wing in America.
Yeah.
This is owned by a corporation. I've said this before on these things, and we're trying to hit these points home. There is no left in America, and anything that's owned by a corporation at face value can't be left wing. You know, for a lot of different reasons. You know, so it's so ridiculous to think. And then, what would be their motive to lie to you, so that you can get free health care? Is their motive to lie so a bunch of lazy people could lay there while you go to work? That's their they have no reason to lie to you. The people that are lying have a lot of reason to lie to you. Because they're, you know, and the people that are lying to you are the ones who have to pay $700 million for lying. They're the ones who have 4,000 litigations against them for fraud and bogus, you know, business practices. And, you know, going so far as to, you know, exploit you know, nonprofits and, you know, now they can't even, like, Trump can't even have a charity anymore because he stole from them. He's been stealing money for charities even. Bankrupted subcontractors, you know, 4,000 plus litigations, you know, over the course of his lifetime. How many accusations of sexual misconduct? 27, 26, something
well,
like that.
And they just get worse and worse because
right, and then he paid hundreds of millions to pay these people off. That's the person you're going to believe? You don't think that person has an agenda of himself and his ego and the fact that he's an evil man. You can, like, somehow, this is the insanity of it. They've been captivated by this. But like I said, this is their shadow self made incarnate. But they're going to say that somebody like you and I, we're getting paid to do this. And
trust me, I wish. I haven't seen a dime.
What's our agenda? Like, we're just some lazy bums who just want to, like, suck off the tin of the system, Al.
I'm trying to think. Have I made any money from TikTok? Yes. Have I made any money from my political posts on TikTok? No. So, and even if I was, that's not money coming from any organization or any politician or any. So no, we have not seen a dime.
On TikTok, I didn't even pay your phone bill.
Right. But again, it's not the political videos for better or worse, and it's not coming from any political organization.
Right.
It's coming from just views.
We're doing this out of justified contempt.
Right. And if we make anything great, but that hasn't happened yet, okay? We'll let you know if we get there.
Look, are we on the receiving end? In some ways, in some small ways, this and that. And look, I want my outrage to be where it needs to be for people who are getting the fucking receiving end of this shit. And it's probably not even enough in all reality because the people on the receiving end of this shit, you know, are really getting it hard. So, you know, am I doing everything? Probably not. I need to do more. But here's the thing. And I got to keep my sanity too. You know,
you're getting out to the protests. We're making these videos. What else was I going to say? Did you vote yet?
No,
but you will, and we voted last week.
And we talked about doing, what good is voting going to do at this point?
Well, it's one of those things where it might not be doing as much.
Well, this is voting on some proposition, so that's fine.
Yeah.
But for your candidait's, here in Texas, it's going to be
it's debatable.
But you still have to do it.
Right.
So, but anyways, hopefully it'll make a difference. But it's going to have to be more than that.
No, it's kind of the bare minimum. So it's like that's your entrance fee to yak about stuff because. Well, did you vote? Yes. Okay. Keep talking then.
Right. You at least got to do the bare minimum.
Right.
And even, you know, at this point, there's got to be more resistance than just that. So going back to these people in this bubble and how they can't even understand. And then, okay, so you have that aspect, right? So when they're in this alternate reality that they're living in, which is truly full of delusions, lies, incoherent, and and they're in the trauma bond with the abuser. And like I said, many of these people come from religious backgrounds and things like this, so this is all very common to them. They're so used to it that these heavenly tyrants become earthly tyrants. So it's not foreign to their psyche. The disheartening thing is probably, I think I know who you're probably talking about in this case, is some of these people are not stupid on the level of they're not stupid at math or science or things like this, but they are stupid when it comes to these emotional things and these faith things and then understanding of how the world works and things like that. They're completely ignorant. And they can't think logically. They can't think. Look, they have huge gaps in their thinking abilities when it comes to these kind of issues because a lot of it's fear-based. And they also want to hold on to this grandiose false self that's been created about America and about themselves. So when you start to break that apart and dismantle their belief systems, that these people who think this way are inferior, they're just horrible people and they deserve what they get, and then it turns out that they've been wrong this whole time and just wicked, evil people, their brains misfire and they literally just get these gaps, like you said.
Yeah.
Their brain literally won't accept it. I was watching this, somebody was saying like this thing where there's this phenomenon where people have a stroke or get burned or something, and they'll look in the mirror and they can't even see it. They don't even, their brain.
And the weird thing is some of these people are old enough that, yes, that might be what's going on. But then you have the same thing happening to people that are young enough that that's not what's going on.
No, the same thing is happening to young people. Look, if you've created a fault, like you were raised in the Christian church and all these things, and then somebody starts to dismantle it, and you're a very logical and smart person, when that logic starts to create that cognitive dissonance, they get these brain gaps.
Right.
So this has nothing to do with the cognitive ability diminishing at its age. This has to do with the
dissonance, yeah.
The dissonance and the dissolving of the false self.
Right.
That has nothing to do with cognitive function at that level.
Okay, yeah.
So I don't think it has to do with age. It just has to do with how indoctrinated you are. At what level are you indoctrinated, and how it's starting to corrupt your psyche. And rather than the pain and suffering that's involved with trying to break free of it, it's much easier to double down on your bullshit all the way to the grave in some cases.
Yeah.
And that's the unfortunate thing, and I've said it in the TikTok before, some of these people are at the point of, they'll literally be down in the jungle of South America drinking Kool-Aid. So, and there was a handful of people who ran out in the jungle because they're like, no, I'm not doing this shit. And we'll have some of those people coming over from MAGA. But, they're in a cult. They're brainwashed. You can't talk to a lot of these people. Now, is that everybody? No. Case by case basis. It's up for people to determine who you want to talk to and who you don't. Then there's also people that are just clueless in the middle, whatever that means. They're always kind of fascist at heart. But some of these people can be brought up. Look, when I was growing up, I had these thoughts and attitudes about a lot of different things. I was kind of clueless about a bunch of shit. And I'd punch that dude in the face right now, probably for a lot of shit. So, some people can come around as they, as they wise up. So you have to look at the person, see where they're at and see where their heart is, and see if there is some way to get through to them if they're not completely brainwashed at this point. If there's any, little holes that you can see the light coming through with some people. And if there is, maybe talk to them. Yeah. If not, leave them alone. Not worth your fucking heartache.
Yeah. And my point is that
and that's why you won't have those conversations.
Right.
Because you don't see a beam of light.
No, and what scared me is I knew that I wasn't going to see a beam of light. I thought there was more light there than there was. Like just the extent to which the clueless was clueless was even bigger than I thought it was.
Yeah. You're talking to a black hole.
Yeah.
So I guess the one thing I just want to wrap it up before we tie this all together is how they also don't understand, what do you mean by no kings? You don't have a king, because if you had a king, you wouldn't be able to protest. Well, how many countries that had oligarchs and kings and everything else that had protests?
But on top of which, as somebody else pointed out, that's why we're having the protests, because we don't want to have a king when we're trying to make sure we don't get to that point.
Right. Well, let's put it this way. In all intents and purposes, because of the Supreme Court and owning the
House and the Senate, etc.
Having the House and the Senate, and the Supreme Court basically saying that you can do whatever you want and get away with it, and all these other appointees that he's put into place, he's essentially a king at this point.
It's worse than that. Did you hear what happened with South Korea? They literally gave him a crown. They literally gave him. I mean,
let's just talk about the fact that if he says something right now, and no matter what it is, nobody can stop him. How far is he going to take this? And he's already proven time and time again, that he doesn't care what the court says, the lower courts, because the Supreme Court gave him immunity. So he can do anything he wants at this point. How far is it going to go? So they say that we don't have a king. Look, he is getting ready. They are getting ready for something big, I think. Will they get to it? Let's see. Let's see what happens. Will people play into their hands, into the violence, and do what I think they're planning for things to go that way? I don't think he's ready yet. I don't think the military will back him. So that's why he has to get this ICE army, and he's getting another army started too. That's another topic we can talk about later. He's getting 2 private armies going because the military probably aren't going to go on his side on this. He's telling he's telling the National Guard to get ready. All of his cabinet post people are moving to military bases, living on military bases now. So they're getting scared, and they know. So that should be a warning sign. And how bad is it going to get? We'll see. But the thing is that beyond the fact that he has pretty much, the ability of a king in a lot of different ways, he's doing king-like things. That's why the protest, no kings. We don't want a person who has this type of immunity. We want to get back to where we can put these regulations and things in place where he doesn't have that, and the 3 branches of government work the way they should work. So that's why we needed no kings. That's why kings, no kings, and that's why these people don't understand, because they're brainwashed. They're in a cult. They're in a bubble. They're being lied to by people with very ominous, horrible agendas, and they don't even know it.